Hey guys, this week's sponsor is Cup of Tea. Cup of Tea is a premier online retailer of loose leaf organic teas and teaware. Based in Ontario, Canada, they are dedicated to enriching lives through the experience of premium teas, specially made from organic ingredients, with each taste offering unique benefits to tea lovers all over the world and every drop telling a story. Their journey as a company began in 2008 when founder Taylor Lindsay Noel, an aspiring Olympic gymnast, suffered a devastating accident while training that left her paralyzed and in a wheelchair. Driven to overcome her challenges and transform her situation, she launched Cup of Tea in 2018 with the goal of providing the world's finest loose leaf organic teas and teaware. Some of my favorite products include their cold brewer, which is this big ass wine bottle looking infuser, which you just drop some tea leaves in, put it in your fridge overnight with water, and in the morning you have cold tea, and it's delicious. I like to do a bit of chai and make a little chai latte for myself. They also have a lot of really great fruity teas. There's a mandarin one, a peach one, a berry one, and I've been experimenting with a couple tea cocktails myself. They are delicious. So thank you so much to Cup of Tea for sponsoring this week's episode, and make sure to check out their website today at www.cupoftea.com and use our code KNOCKING20, that's KNOCKING 20, for 20% off your entire order. And once again, that's www.cupoftea.com, and please tell them that we sent you.
This podcast contains explicit content and is intended for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised. Don't say we didn't warn you. Hey friends, it's Hannah.
And I'm Madison.
And you're listening to Who's Knocking?
Yet another true crime podcast.
Here we are. We're back. Back to talk about our boy Roch.
Oh,
Have you decompressed since the last episode?
I have. And I the last episode was disturbing for sure, but I have been prepped to listen to something extra fucked up, so I'm kind of scared, but I'm ready.
Yeah. Last episode was kind of like the appetizer, you could say.
The amuse-bouche.
Yep. So let me recap for you. Tell you where we last left off.
Okay.
So last time on Who's Knocking, we talked about Roch Thériault, and if you recall, he was doing things like asking his henchman Jacques to cut off his wife's toe, Jacques' wife's toe, as a punishment for wanting to leave their cult. He was doing things like performing at-home castrations on Guy Vere, who was considered the mentally unstable one in the cult. And where we left off, Roch is in prison in Quebec City. He was charged with criminal negligence causing bodily harm to poor Samuel, who's the kid that died out in the Quebec wilderness.
That was the worst part.
Yeah, that was pretty bad. There's some more stuff like this, just so you know, in this episode.
Yeah, maybe just give like a slight look. People, if you have problems with anything, don't listen to this episode. There are many more episodes for you. This one is not. If you're queasy on anything, just don't. Yeah,
literally trigger warning. Child abuse, adult human abuse, mutilation, torture, murder, like pretty much every bad thing you can imagine basically happens.
Yeah, so just please don't listen to this and then come to us and say, that was so crazy. Just don't listen.
Yeah, listen to it if you want to be scared and then say thank you. Thank you. I was terrified. Because I was telling you, Madison, I was reading over my notes today and I was like, it was putting me in a weird mood. Like I was kind of like, oh my God, what world do we live in?
Well, I haven't read it and I don't know. So I'm like, we'll see if I agree. Maybe you'll read it and I'll be like, that's it.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, I'm interested to hear. So, okay, talking scale of 1 to 10. I remember last time I had said like 8 overall, and I had said the first part is maybe like 4 or 5-ish, the second part being more towards the 8. But I've changed my mind. I'm going with a 9. Yeah, I feel like every time I read it, it kind of gets worse. I don't know.
That's crazy because I tend to get
Yeah,
desensitized to things pretty quickly.
me
So,
too. Sometimes I think with this case, it's really the explicit, detailed information that I was able to find. It's so vivid that it's like, when you read about cases and it's kind of like anonymous, if that makes sense, you don't hear as
mhm.
many details of what happened in a lot of situations, especially something where there's like a mass situation. Like, for example, Jonestown Massacre, like so many people died, but they weren't like, as far as I know, there's not specific individual necessarily accounts. Well, obviously, those people unfortunately passed away, but you're not hearing like the specifics of each one. And it probably, if you did, then it
Yeah.
would be so much worse.
Side note, there were people that did escape from
Yeah,
Jonestown and lived to tell the tale. But I agree with you. I think that the more like of an individual account that you have, the more like you
it's personal.
empathize and
Yeah.
feel for that situation. When it's like, oh, like 60 people or like 600 people died in a plane crash, you're like, oh my God, that's terrible. But it's like there's no faces, there's no names, there's
Yeah.
no stories. But when you hear like one single person's account of like them being tortured and I don't know, any being killed, and it's way more horrific to listen to.
I think that's what it is. And originally, when we were kind of like ranking how fucked things were, I was seeing it as like, okay, if something's going to be a 10 or a 9, it has to have happened to like a ton of people. Like, it has to be a bunch of murders because that's like obviously more extreme, therefore, it would be higher up on the scale. But yeah, I've revised it. I'm calling it a 9. I don't know, maybe 8 or 9. But I feel like just the extent of the details is just, yeah, let me get into it.
All
I
right,
don't
yeah,
even
yeah.
have words for
Go,
some
go,
of this.
go, because I'm scared.
Okay, so let's begin part 2. So part 2 begins in February of 1984, and that's when Roch was released from prison after a 2-year sentence for his negligence that he was charged for. Although Roch's followers had wanted to stay in Quebec City, at the time they were all renting apartments there to stay near him while he was in prison. Obviously, they wanted to stay there as opposed to move into the wilderness with like no resources and no protection from Roch's psychoticness. They wanted to stay, but he decided it was time to move back to the wilderness once he was released from prison.
Okay.
So he wanted to convince his followers, obviously. He told them he had stopped drinking and that there would be no more violence,
Oh,
which,
liar.
yeah, kind of don't trust that, but okay. But final nail in the coffin to convince them, he reminded them that he was God's chosen one. So they kind of had no choice. Got to go with
Oh my
God's chosen.
God.
He's God's chosen. Like, what,
They
can't
could
say
have
no.
just left
No.
while he was in prison.
Yeah, that's actually pretty interesting. They all stayed, I believe, except for Guy Vier had fucked off, but they all stayed and they were like, I think they were, I forget how many people in total, maybe about 20 people, and they were all sharing about 4 apartments. So they were like near him while he was in prison.
That's so crazy that only one
Yeah.
person left.
And I think what it is too is that obviously he'd alienated them against like their families, against the outside world, which I'll talk about more. But I think what it was too is that like I don't know if this is the right word for it, but there's a thing where it's like trauma bond, where like you can form a bond just based on like the bad things that have happened to you. So I think like all of them were all together. They kind of felt like they only had each other,
Yeah,
and maybe they wanted like a reason for what they'd gone through, and like to actually a part of them wanted to believe that he was the chosen one, or maybe they really did believe that because it would like justify the shit that they'd
for
been
sure.
through.
If they had like endured all that and then it turned out to be for nothing, that would be so much worse, I'm sure, in their own mind. So
Yeah,
yeah, it makes sense.
than if they actually were saved in the rapture and whatever.
It
Sorry.
just is crazy that so many people hung on for 2 years, like for
Yeah,
2 years while he was in prison. Like that's intense.
I know. I think a couple of them were imprisoned as well. Like I didn't write down that many details of the other people in the cult just because I really wanted to focus the story that I told mainly on Roch, who to me is kind of like the obviously the center of it all. I'm like, he's the coolest. No, but yeah, he's obviously important to the story. And so I think a few of the other ones, other cult members, they were definitely charged with things as well, but they had lesser sentences. But for the most part, most of them were just staying nearby on their own, just yeah, supporting. But yeah, so Roch picked a spot near Lindsay, Ontario, which is not
Mhm.
far from me actually,
Yeah, I know.
and Yeah, and that's where he wanted his followers to build their new commune. So once again, he picked a very isolated location for them to live in, all the better to manipulate them and literally psychologically isolate them. Cool. And side note, what I read in the article was that at this time he had renamed himself Roch, which is just like the anglicized version of his name, which I don't know.
Like
Is it
ROCK?
Yeah, ROCK. It's like, I don't know. Should I call you
Like,
that? Should I call you Roch? I don't really know. He's one or both at this point.
yeah.
Thought I'd just mention. So he had 11 adult followers at this time, 9 females and two males. And then at this point, they built a really elaborate cabin in the wilderness, which included an altar for him to talk to God at, because, you know, doing lots of holy stuff, obviously, talking to God. So believe it or not, even though 4 of the women were pregnant and all of the other followers were responsible for the 10 children that were with them at the time, they all had to work really long hours throughout the summer, the hot, buggy summer, to build their new home, while Roch literally just fucked around and did whatever he wanted.
Were they all pregnant with his children?
Yes.
Gotcha.
He was the only one who was allowed to, like, impregnate the women.
Yeah, but I guess, like, I was wondering if any of them had gotten pregnant while he was in prison.
Oh, that's a good question. To be honest, I'm not 100% sure, but based on the other information I've read and some of the stuff that comes later, I'm pretty sure at least most of them were his kids. So he was just like impregnating women and like chilling around, watching them while they all worked. If you recall, he had an ulcer in the past. He had these ongoing stomach issues. So that was kind of like his excuse for not working, which, considering some of the shit he put the rest of them through, not that much of an excuse. Really. But yeah.
Toes. Oh, and the lady who he chopped her toe off, is she still there?
She's still there, yeah. And her husband. Her husband is his like main henchman.
Right, okay.
And she's still there. Actually, I do talk more about her later in this episode, so she's still around. But yeah, in this new commune, Roch decided that he was going to create a hierarchy among the wives of the group. Oh, here, Maurice comes back in. So Maurice was the one who he had gotten her husband, Jacques, to cut her toe off. So Maurice was, she had tried to escape after that and got her toe cut off as a punishment. She got to be at the bottom of the hierarchy. Oh. So really,
she should have left when he was in jail.
One fucking thing after the other. So she stayed, unfortunately. I mean, her husband stayed, so maybe like she wanted to stay with him. I don't know. She probably was brainwashed, I'm assuming. Like, these people were for sure brainwashed by him. But yeah, so Jacques, her husband, was forbidden to sleep with her, and he was encouraged by Roch to beat her if she talked back to him, or Roch, whatever, even though she was pregnant. He was encouraged to beat her. So
that's so not good for the baby.
Yeah, not good for the baby, definitely. Oh my God, nothing is good for the babies in this scenario. Or just ending them. Yeah, just literally nothing about this is good. Everything about this is awful. So here's a fun fact. Roch determined that she had a birthmark that looked like 666, and that was his excuse to like demean her, essentially.
Because she was the devil?
Yeah, she had the devil's mark, birthmark that says 666. And he basically made her live apart from the rest of the followers with her 2 kids that were from like a previous, where they were Jacques' kids, they weren't Roch's kids. So she had to live apart. Although he did later accept her older daughter back into the group, which I'm about to talk about. But so,
oh my God, he raped her.
Well, yeah. So not too surprising, but yeah. So she had to live apart with her 2 kids, and yeah, that's what was going on. They were building the commune. Roch was chilling, probably barking orders, drinking, complaining about his stomach pain. The usual.
He sounds like the worst person. I hate him so much.
I know. He sounds awful. Like, I feel like he has very few redeeming qualities. Although many reports talked about how charming he was. Which,
yeah, that's what I'm so curious about. Like, I want to see that in action. Like, what the hell was he saying to people that was so charming? I've
only seen a couple clips of him, like nothing really, and he's French too. But I'm sure there's more on the internet. I didn't really look too much because
it's like, it's one thing like Charles Manson, for example. Like, I get how he could charm like hippie people or people who are like in that mindset. But it's like you're telling me, and I don't know that that's the case with Charles Manson, but like you're gonna go stand in a court of law and like charm the fuck out of a lawyer and a judge who are like
Yeah,
regular people, not just like people on drugs.
that
You know
is
what I
what.
mean?
Yeah, that's what Roch was doing. Remember how he charmed the psychiatric hospital people to think he was like this great guy and he was mentally competent?
Exactly. That's what I'm
I'm like,
saying. So
fuck
it's
no,
like
he's
it's one thing to charm all these people who are like looking for something and are lost in
right.
life or whatever, but like to just do that at like a regular institution with like normal, well-adjusted people,
Yeah. Like I
that's a
either feel
lot.
like doctors were really incompetent. Maybe a lot of these people, I don't know too much about the culture of Canada at the time, like early 80s at that point it was, or late 70s, but I mean, it definitely seemed like kind of a failure of justice, that's for sure. But anyways, so let me tell you a little bit about how the Anthill kids were making ends meet in their new
Oh,
community.
please do.
Yeah. So at first, they had a pretty good reputation in the area, fucking somehow, because no one really knew the like brutality of what was going on at the life in the commune, or they didn't know about the past activities with the castration, with the child's murder, and all that stuff, or negligence. Um, and so basically, the community in the area were like, yeah, these people are a little bit weird, but they seem very hardworking and honest people. So that's kind of the vibe.
I could see how that they could come off like that if you didn't see anyone chopping people's toes off or killing
Yeah,
babies.
that's true. Everyone sees them like all building their cabin and
Yeah.
whatnot. So okay, so that's how they seemed at that point. And so they had moved from Quebec and now they're in Ontario. But the downside of that was that the welfare system was different and they were
Mhm.
no longer able to support themselves through government funding, which is how they were making money before. At this
Yeah,
point,
Quebec
no
is
longer
pretty
funding.
generous with that.
Yeah, I mean, they were doing okay before. But yeah, so the government stopped funding them. And as we know, all the psychopaths love a reason to isolate their followers, psychologically and physically in this case. So he pretty much convinced his people that the outside world was against them, against their holy purposes, and the government denying them funding was just like another way to reaffirm that with them and essentially like put them more like under his control. So they didn't have the government money, they didn't have jobs at that point, and Roch decided that his followers should turn to shoplifting to acquire food.
Hmm.
Logical next step, I
Very
guess.
Charles Manson-y.
Yeah, honestly, a lot of this is it's
Yeah.
pretty similar, except I don't think Charles Manson was cutting off the toes of his.
No, he was not doing that.
He didn't do anything like that,
So
right?
in a sense, this man was
This is kind of
so in
worse.
a sense, Charles Manson was a normal guy compared to this
I feel
guy.
like yeah, like I feel like he's worse. I mean, I don't know. That's an interesting debate. I don't know. Maybe you
That's
can't debate one.
we can determine that after at the
Okay,
end of
okay.
the
We'll
episode.
get it. We'll get to
Who is
it. So
scarier,
yeah,
this guy or Charles Manson? Poll.
I think this guy's way fucking scarier. This guy is
Mm.
like Charles Manson, like if you go in his inner circle, the worst he's gonna make you do is harm someone else. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
This guy, he's just gonna make every single day of your life like the most brutal hell you can imagine.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Ooh.
he's the worst. He's trash. I'm sorry. Like oh, okay, I'm not gonna say anything. Okay, so yeah, so they were stealing shit. They were stealing food from all the local grocery stores in Lindsay, which is the town that they live near, and it was working really well for them. They actually even crafted special jackets with large pockets on the inside to help them like shoplift better. So
Mm.
strategy. And it was working, but then on January 31st, 1985, a police officer caught a group of them stealing a total of about like $450 worth of goods. And their punishment was that they were banned from shopping in Lindsay forever.
Like the whole town?
Yeah,
Oh.
apparently that's like something that the police could do.
Oh.
So at this point, Roch told his followers, that especially the women followers, which were most of them, he said, why don't you guys ask your parents for some money? You know, get them to support us. He did remind them that if the parents refuse, it would show how much they were against the holy missions of the cult, as they should be, to be honest. Like,
Yeah, and what expectation would he have out of their parents to give him money?
yeah, the parents were basically like, yeah, they pretty much said no. Some of them did say that if their daughters would leave, if they left Roch, they could have some money, but unfortunately, none of them wanted to at that point. actually what had happened was that, I mean, Roch had obviously brainwashed all of the women against their parents, or just in general, but a
Yeah.
lot of the girls didn't even want to call their parents. Like, when he told them, go call your parents and ask for money, a lot of them were like, please don't make me call them. They're so evil. They're against our mission.
Oh, I can't imagine if like my kid was in something like that.
Yeah. Well, if you do this whole parenting thing right, I think you can avoid it.
I don't know. It depends. Like peers are, I think, one of the biggest influence over kids
Yeah.
once they
Definitely.
turn a certain age. And then it's like, you just have to hope you didn't fuck it up too much.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Like the teenage years. I know. I mean, I didn't really look into it too much, the histories of any of these followers. Obviously, like within the Manson family, we know that most of his followers either came from like homes that were kind of like unstable, or I mean, all of them did, or had
Or
previous like
just like really rich, like regular homes. And they were like, no, I need to rebel against this because it's
oh
the
yeah,
60s, you know? I'm pretty sure somebody correct me if I'm wrong.
maybe Linda, the one who testified. I think she was one of those because she was like,
I'm pretty
eh,
sure
I'll be
Leslie
back with
Van
the
Houten was too.
yeah,
I
maybe not.
recall her being from like a regular or like or even more of a wealthy family.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't know that that's true. Don't quote me on that. Please, somebody who knows what they're talking about, say so.
yeah. You guys can hold us accountable to the true
Yeah.
crime. But yeah, I don't know really about any of these people. I imagine that, like, I can't help but think that they probably didn't have a lot of like a good support system. Otherwise, I don't know.
It's hard. I think like the psychology of that is so individualistic. I think that there's some people who like maybe their parents did support them, but like I was kind of trying to imply with Leslie Van Houten, like there are many reasons for people to make weird decisions, especially when they're young and like stupid. That it's like I think there's a lot of teenagers of like affluent upper class who are like kind of jealous of people with like an up and coming story and like
Yeah,
want to do something different and want to rebel against their like very normal lives.
but see, I think that in okay, probably depends again, like you said, case by case. But I think that in most cases, in that scenario, the really wealthy kids are like emotionally unfulfilled by their families. And
Yeah,
all
for
they've ever
sure.
been taught is just to value material things. And so they want to seek something different. So I still think it's kind of like a failure of the family in a way. But,
Yeah, in
you
that
know,
way, you know what I mean? Yeah. Fair
yeah,
enough,
yeah.
fair enough.
Okay. I mean, who knows? Honestly, I would be interested to know. There's a few females, women, I shouldn't say females, weird way to call it. I'm used to talking about dogs.
You're thinking about them as dogs.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, there's a few of the women where like they are really intriguing to me and I would like to find out more, but I already had so many notes that I was like, okay, stop it. That's enough.
Hit us up if you want a third episode going into
Yeah.
that.
I mean, I would definitely research some of the actual members of this cult as well. But in the end, the group ended up finding some success through selling fruit and pastries, and they were able to make a living that way.
So were they baking these pastries?
I
Like
think so, yeah. I mean, where else would they be
random?
getting them?
I know. Well, yeah, it's like not like they're gonna order them. And were they
In
growing
between.
fruit?
Yeah, maybe. Like while he's cutting off your toe, you're like making a pastry.
Oh,
I don't know. I
well,
imagine that's what was going on.
it must have been a lot of pastries to support 11, 12 people plus children.
Yeah. Funnily enough, there wasn't a ton of details on that part. I actually didn't really look into it that much because the real
Meat's coming up.
part. Yeah. You want to talk about where things start to take a turn again?
I do.
Okay, here it goes. Okay. Now that he was no longer desperate to survive, Roch started to get bored, which led to him starting to heavily drink again.
Oof.
I mean, nothing good can come of this.
Okay.
And, while he started drinking, he obviously couldn't do any work since he had his stomach pains. And he actually would prescribe himself a case of beer anytime his stomach hurt.
That makes sense.
The doctor. So, do you want to hear about some of the things that he did to his followers out of his boredom and drunkenness?
Yes, I do.
Okay. We'll start off with something pretty light.
Okay.
He
I'm
liked
terrified.
this is like just the tip of the iceberg. We'll
Okay.
start you off. So he liked to pit the women against each other psychologically, just through talking shit about each of them and like degrading their self-esteem. But he would also set up aggressive naked wrestling matches between the women.
Oh.
Why? I don't know. And he'd also do this thing where he'd put one of the men in the middle of a circle of women and then just tell the women, like, hit and kick this guy. Because I'm
Why?
bored. He's bored. He needs
The
some
fuck?
entertainment.
That's so random.
Yeah. I mean, he was bored. What do you do when you're bored, Madison?
Not that.
Just read about it.
I sit quietly and read about people who did that.
Yeah, pretty much. Okay, so yeah, that, and once in a while he himself would jump into these wrestling matches, but if anyone hit him, he would take away some of their allocated food. So he's into that. Like, he likes to kind of like have a reason to take something away, I feel like. It's like a way
to set up a situation in which he can punish somebody.
Yeah, to exert his dominance. Okay, so here's some of the little more, you could say, extreme things he started to do. He would whip his followers or physically beat them. He would hit them with the broadside of an axe or with a hammer. Sometimes he would urinate on them.
Disgusting.
Or force them to,
that's so gross.
Yeah, it's why. I mean, I don't know. Some people are into that, I guess. But I don't think they were into it.
Some people are into it.
Yeah, but I don't think they were. I don't think it was one of those things. Yeah. And he would get them to smear themselves with each other's feces as well.
Oh, that's disgusting.
Yeah. Just for fun, you know?
That's disgusting. You know what? I deal with a lot of human poo these days, and it's disgusting. Okay? Poo is disgusting.
Yeah, me too. Dog, though. And I like pretty much pick it up every day. And like at this point, I mean, it is actually gross. What am I even saying? It's gross forever. You kind of pretend it's not, but it's...
Especially somebody else's.
Yeah.
Like, I would be probably the least...
But I've heard, like, in Germany and stuff.
People like it. Remember 2 Girls, 1 Cup?
Yes. I've never seen it, but I know, obviously.
Oh, I've seen it.
You've seen it?
Oh, yeah. It's foul.
It's like, did you seek it out or did someone show it to you?
No, we must have been like 13, 14, heard about it, and like, what are we gonna do? Not Google it?
I actually don't think I did. I don't remember ever seeing it.
I've seen it a couple times.
Multiple times. I was pretty sheltered as a child. I didn't see the shit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I would have been in grade 10.
Oh, that wasn't even that young. Like 15, 16? Yeah. Good times. If you recall Jacques, the henchman who cut his wife's toe off, he ordered that he should be circumcised, which I will spare you the details of that procedure, but that happened. In the article, it said he cut off his whole glans. I don't know which. I didn't actually look up which part of the dick is a glans, but I feel like it's...
Yeah, what's the glans? Because I've like been present for a circumcision, so I know like how it all works, but like I don't know what a gland is. It's a foreskin is what they cut off.
Oh, I think it's just like it's like part of the top. It's part of the top part.
The gland?
You know, glands, like with an S, Glans. I think it might just be like the whole tip. Like, I'm pretty sure.
You're saying he chopped off the whole tip, or like peeled back the foreskin? Yeah.
No, I think he cut off the whole tip. Yeah, it is. Isn't that terrible?
Like, how do you not die from bleeding out from that?
I think he survived. Yeah, he survived. I forget. There was a big section of details about it, but I was like, it wasn't that relevant to the story. Yeah, his whole tip. Oh. And he stayed. He's like, yeah, this is just what happens.
Well, what are you gonna do now with missing the tip of your dick? Like,
yeah, you're fucked.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Also, at no point were any of the followers allowed to go to the hospital.
Of course. Well, he's medical extraordinaire.
Yeah. He's pretty much a doctor. So, like, why the fuck would you need to go to
What do I know? I'm just a doctor.
Yeah. Like, what are you guys complaining about? You've got a doctor right there. Here's a nice little humanizing detail. So apparently Roch would always cry the next day when he sobered up, and he would beg God to stop using him for a vehicle for God's cruel justice. Like,
right. Okay, well that's okay then. He repented.
Yeah. You know what? You feel bad, so
it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Cool.
But But yeah, that's a little snapshot of how life was starting off in the new commune.
Oh my God.
But let's talk about the beginning of the end for Roch and the Anthill kids. So this part's a little out of order because I mentioned how they were caught shoplifting January 31st. But the way that I read it in the article, this is January 26th, 1985. So this was like just a little bit before that. So they were still shoplifting at this time. So Gabrielle, one of the followers, left her January 26th,
5-month-old
1985. Baby. You might want to take a drink for this one.
I'm running out anymore.
Yeah. This is, well, you're not going to like this part. So Gabrielle, one of Roch's followers, left her 5-month-old baby, which is Roch's son, named Eleazar, probably saying that wrong. She left him outside in a wheelbarrow. Now, this was January in Ontario.
Oh, so, it's freezing.
Yeah, so it was snowing and the temperature was around minus 10 degrees Celsius, which is 14 degrees Fahrenheit. So she left her baby outside around 9 a.m. in the wheelbarrow, and he was dead by 10:45 a.m., an hour and a half, 45 minutes later. Why did she do this? So I know, it's so fucked. Her 5-month-old child. She did
on purpose, I'm assuming.
On purpose, yeah, because Roch hated that kid, which was his kid. He claimed he bore the mark of the devil, apparently, and he would just like beat him just like all the time. So he just
a 5-month-old baby.
Yeah.
How do you hate a baby? How do you hate a baby? You can't hate babies.
He hates everyone. He hates everyone. He's just like, it's so weird to me, like, because a lot of the story, it's like he started becoming really fucked up after he had his like multiple surgeries, and then he was like really drinking heavily. And I guess those two things, like maybe there is something like, because even I remember like reading about Jeffrey Dahmer too, like as a kid he had a double hernia surgery, and before that he was known to be like this like sweet outgoing kid, and then after that he became really reclusive and withdrawn. So I don't know if it's one of those things, because you know how they say like the gut and the brain are connected. So maybe it's one of those things where, I mean, I don't know. I'm sure a lot of fucking people get hernia and ulcer surgeries and don't turn into murderous, vicious psychopaths. But I don't know. Maybe like it's like hard to understand why he was so like evil and angry. Like apparently his father was abusive. You know what I mean? Like maybe if we knew all the details of the shit he went through, maybe it would make more sense. But I don't know anything about his childhood really, other than fairly casual things, it seems like. So it's like, how was he so fucking evil? I don't understand.
Yeah. And it's just crazy because like on some level, all of these people volunteered to be there. So there's something a little bit, something where there's a little piece of me that's like, okay, I'm not as off put by him doing horrible things to them because they like wanted to be there. Right. But the babies did not want to be there, you know?
Yeah.
That's where it's like, oh.
Yeah. And I do think like what he probably, like he's a predator, right? Like they know exactly how to prey. They know how to select the most vulnerable people, exploit their vulnerabilities, take them to a super low place where they'll accept really bad treatment, then make them feel like it's their fault, make them feel like they're trapped there. Like it is something that happens obviously on like way lesser of a scale all the time.
Yeah. Like, no, they're totally victims, like absolutely.
Yeah.
And like I don't not feel bad for them at all. It's just like a 5-month-old baby had no.
I think I understand what they were going through a lot more than him, because it's like, I mean, I've kind of been in that situation, so I kind of know, obviously not as extreme, thank fucking God I still have all my toes, but anyway, so yeah, thank you, like it's fine, everything's
I know,
fine.
isn't it kind of cool to like make it out to your mid-20s and be like, oh, I'm still intact, like nothing.
Every time we do one of these episodes I'm like, okay, my life's been
I've been talking to with like one of my sisters-in-law about like how many situations I got myself into in my early 20s that were like, I should be dead. Like something horrible should have happened to me. Just like choices I made, like people who I just like, people who I was just like, I'll come meet you at like in the middle of the night. I barely know you. Like, no, like somebody, I should be like dead in someone's trunk.
I'm really glad that you made it through that, because some of those situations,
people with like way more street smarts than me have not made it through. So
we've been lucky.
Yeah.
But so basically Gabrielle left Eliezer, I think I'm just saying that wrong, but she left him outside so that he died because she honestly just wanted to show him mercy. Like that was her rationale for it. She was like, this kid is living such a unfair, like
So
traumatic.
she wanted to save him from Roch.
Yeah, she was like, I can't. What's she gonna do? Tell Roch to stop? It's just gonna make things worse. So,
oh God.
Yeah. So actually, what happened was the county's coroner showed up, which of course Roch befriended him. Hang on, let me say that again. Rewind that part. So the county's coroner showed up, who Roch befriended, as he does, and he ended up reporting that the baby had died from sudden infant death syndrome.
Yeah.
Typical Roch befriending the authority figure, making it seem like he didn't do anything wrong.
So they didn't do like an autopsy on the baby?
I guess not. I mean, even if they had, like maybe he would have had like, I mean, yeah, maybe the baby would have had like bruises or something, but there wasn't necessarily probably an obvious cause of death if it was just from like the cold. I don't know. Maybe they didn't do it.
That must show up. Well, I wouldn't be like, if he was like such a charming guy that he like charmed them into thinking, like telling them what happened. I think a lot of the times, government authorities will be like, okay, like it was a suicide. Like we don't even have to do that.
They're like, this is what it is. And I do think too, like, I know the sudden infant death syndrome is like a really common diagnosis, but it's like most of the time there's a reason. Most kids don't die for no reason. I know it is a thing, but
sudden infant death syndrome is like an umbrella term for
right,
for kids who die in their sleep and they don't know what happened.
Right. But I've heard situations where that diagnosis was given when there was really something else going on. Like I feel like sometimes like the go-to.
Because technically every reason for a child to die is not sudden infant death syndrome, because sudden infant death syndrome is what they determine when they don't know what it was.
Got it.
You know
So
what I mean?
they just give it as a term to like basically wrap up the case.
Yeah, so it's like any situation in which a child probably like smothers themselves in their own sleep, or like somebody's smoking, or whatever it is that kills them. If they don't know what it is, then it is sudden infant death syndrome. I'm pretty sure.
I know we're kind of going off topic, but sorry, by the way, everyone, if that's, let us know if we shouldn't be doing that. We can definitely stay on topic. But Madison, do you ever feel like proud of yourself that you've managed to keep kids alive?
Yes, it is my like proudest thing. I look at them, I'm like, you're fucking walking and talking. Like, I got you there because I fucking fed you.
Yeah. It's kind of hard, it seems like.
It's very difficult.
So, county coroner ruled it sudden infant death syndrome. Roch got off once again, although I guess he didn't technically do it with this. Like he wasn't the one who left his son out in the cold, but like, let's be real. It was his fault.
Beat him till the mother thought it was better for him to be dead.
He just abused everyone else around him. So just that little fact. Nothing too serious.
So horrible.
Yeah. So, but at this point, actually, the Children's Aid Society started to keep a really close eye on the commune. So they started watching them. So don't worry, Madison. Children's Aid is on their way. Let's fast forward to 1986, which is a year after Eliezer died. So do you remember Maurice?
Yes.
She was the only adult woman that Roch hadn't claimed as a wife. She had her toe amputated by her husband, and Roch was forcing her to live alone. So 1986, she was actually allowed to leave with two of her three surviving kids, actually. Because Roch said she was allowed to leave on the condition that her oldest daughter, who had been born before Maurice joined the cult, so it wasn't one of Roch's kids. He said the oldest daughter had to stay and become his next wife. And although her daughter's age wasn't specified, and from what I found, it did say that she was nearing puberty at this time. So she was a child. Yeah. So I guess like pretty much Maurice was the bottom of the barrel, and he was like, I don't care if you leave, which is insane. Like everything about it is insane. So Maurice agreed. She got the fuck out of there with her two kids, left her daughter behind. So they left.
And she didn't like call the cops and were like, hey, go get my daughter out of this fucking crazy person's hands.
Okay, not at that point. So actually what it said was basically that because she had spent like 8 years at that point living under his leadership, I don't know, better word for it, under his torture, she wasn't like really mentally competent, I guess. So when she left, all she could think about was like, yeah, I'm getting out, I'm taking my kids. But then after a few months of like rejoining the real world, learning how to function as a human again, she was ready to actually seek legal action and get custody of her daughter. Maurice was seeking legal action, and she testified about the conditions that the children were living in within the compound, which I'll tell you about in a minute. Just I'll tell you a little bit about the conditions. I'm not going to go into as much detail as I found because, you know, we want to feel happy in our lives. But yeah, so she did go to the authorities. Like, I don't know specifically if it was the police or what, it didn't really say, but whatever she said to whoever she said it to was enough for the CAS to actually go in, remove all the children from the compound, and place them in foster homes at that point.
Thank God.
Yeah, which was in 1986 still. Yeah, thank fucking God. Once the children were in foster homes, it was reported that they exhibited disturbing behavior.
No shit.
Yeah, which made it clear that they'd been seriously abused. So some of the behaviors listed was that they would be randomly screaming, rocking back and forth, chanting, and banging things randomly. So, I mean, obviously, right? But yeah, so between Maurice's testimony and what the children said from the foster homes, here's some of what we found out about their life in Roch's family. Family in extreme, sarcastic, ironic quotes. So I think we discussed this already in the first part, but he had split the kids in the compound into two groups, one of being the chosen children, which was his kids, obviously, and they received more privileges. And then the other children, which were basically seen as like slaves, and that was Maurice's children who had left her kids were in that group as well. So Roch was in charge of the care of his kids, and then the other kids were being watched by, if you recall, our boy Guy Vier, who you might recall him being castrated.
The world's worst babysitter.
Yeah, would not hire him as a babysitter. But yeah, so the other quote unquote children, they would crawl around like animals. They were extremely undernourished, and both the other children and the adults were generally forbidden from talking to them at all. So they were treated like, you know, second class, essentially.
And that's such like a psychological fuckery to do to children, to like put them in two different tiers. Like, oh my God.
I mean, it's the tip of the iceberg, Madison. Like
I'm already like gonna throw up.
I know. But kind of ironically, I guess, because remember how Guy was considered also like lower class in the group. He was considered the mentally incompetent one. The fucking irony. But anyways, Maurice had stated that she would actually rather have Guy take care of her kids. Like, she would rather have them in that second class group rather than Roch take care of the kids. So kind of don't blame her for that.
Just because he was even worse? Like,
just because Guy was like, sounds like he was kind of like depressed, and like it sounded like he had a lot of issues too. Like, I know he was like hitting one of the kids and stuff, but Roch is like maliciously, sadistically evil. So it's kind of worse. Even though his group had better privileges, they got more food. I assume they were maybe given better resources, whatever, treated a little bit better, I guess they treated better. Yeah, they had Roch as their guide, and that's way worse than poor Guy. So, can I tell you a little bit more detail of the shit he did with the kids?
Yes.
I won't go into too much detail in this part, I don't think. But yeah, so, you know, Roch was supposed to be this incarnation of God, so technically his kids were supposed to be the children of God.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't exactly treated as how you would think the children of God should be treated.
Good God.
Yeah. So some light things, I guess, to start. Roch was the only one who was allowed to show any affection to his kids at all. None of the other adults were allowed to. The kids were all deprived of sleep, food, education, and hygiene. Many of the kids had all like rotting teeth. So that's already insanely fucked up. But that's pretty much nothing to the rest of the abuse he was subjecting them to, which I will tell you a few Just a couple little things, not a ton of detail, because, like, you know, any details is pretty extreme right now. But yeah, so one of the things he would do is hold up two women's kids over a fire, threatening to drop them in, because he would want to, like, scare the women and make them feel like they had to compete over whose child would be spared. He had this thing where he liked to play God, basically, and he'd be like, I could kill them, just kidding, but I will, just kidding. Like, that was kind of one of his, I suppose, ways to pass his boredom, quote unquote. Another thing that he would do is nail kids to trees by their clothes and tell the other kids to throw rocks at them, and then call them off, because playing God again. So that, like, just fucking imagine.
Just such a God complex, my God.
Yeah, for sure. He's the son of God or whatever. I know, it's insane. Like, imagine being a kid.
Imagine, like, yeah, growing up in that. Like,
yeah, I would love to know
how they turned out.
Yeah. I'm sure a lot of them are around. This was
80s.
This was 80s, and I believe he had like 20 kids or something like that. I had the number written somewhere in this, but yeah, he had a bunch of kids, and most of them I assume are still around. But yeah, so no graphic details on this. I won't give any, but Roch and his teenage son, Roch Jr., were both known to molest and rape the kids, and they would make the kids watch the adults do sexual activities, because that was like his way of saying, we're giving you sex education. So he was raping the kids. Can't say I'm surprised, but like, that's
no, it's not
absolutely fucked up.
Totally on brand for this guy, but that's
it's on brand. Yeah, it tracks. And then he also would perform like rituals, like for the kids, which one of them included disemboweling a goat in front of them and bathing in its blood.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Yeah, nice little ritual, you could call it. Jeez. But yeah, so probably don't need to say this, but the CAS was pretty fucking concerned about everything they learned from the kids and Maurice. So this whole thing was like obviously going to the authorities at this point. The kids were out in foster homes, but CAS was working with the court at the time. So the court had ordered a third-party assessment, which had included two doctors. I don't know, it just said Dr. whoever, I don't remember their names, but it didn't say if it was like a psychology doctor or a medical doctor, but we'll just call them the doctors. Of fucking course, Roch managed to charm them. Am I saying fuck too much?
No, this episode calls for a lot of fucks. I'm sorry. Like, I think we've already established this is
explicit content.
Yeah, sorry.
But yeah, so the doctors had reported, these are quotes, that he had a pioneering spirit and an experimental attitude to sexual education. Like, what the fuck? How could they possibly, how was that conclusion reached?
And how did they even get to that? How did they even come to that conclusion without hearing like what he's doing? Like, they had to hear about some sort of sexual activities or
yeah.
That's so fucked up.
It just makes no sense. But those two doctors had actually suggested that the government was infringing on the group's rights by trying to split them up. Like, the government was doing a human rights violation, was what they said. And they actually recommended that the children should be returned to the commune. So this is the independent third party that the court hired said this.
So wait, the children got taken away and put in foster care, and then they recommended they give them back.
The two doctors from the third party organization were like, you should put the kids back. Roch just pioneering spirit and experimental attitude towards sexual education. Yeah, like, if we had any distrust for authority before, after this, it's like, are you fucking kidding? Yeah.
Oh God.
I know. Well, okay, so they're just the third party. So it wasn't like the court, at least the court wasn't saying this, but actually the CAS agents who had been assessing Roch, they were also charmed by him. Like, this guy is just so fucking charming. But in the end, that the court actually decided that Roch was getting this support because the doctors and the CAS agents involved, they were both francophones. So basically the court was saying that they were just supporting Roch out of sympathy for him being French and a French group living in an English community, which they kind of felt like, oh, they're prejudiced against you because, the whole like Quebec versus.
Yeah.
For people who don't know, I guess I'll just say, because maybe like someone that's not Canadian might not know, we basically have this state, we call them provinces out here. It's called Quebec, and that's where Roch is from, and his people, and that's a French-speaking community. And then pretty much the rest of Canada, except for some small sections, are all English. So basically, a lot of people in Quebec want to separate from the rest of Canada, and they want to have like their own French country. So I actually think that's probably what really was going down there, because they're, especially at this time, like in the 80s, there's a lot of tension of like people wanting to separate and feeling like, oh, the English are taking over, the English are like against us. So maybe that's kind of the whole thing of what it was. So
I'm sure he probably like really leaned into that.
oh yeah, probably. And he knows how, like, these psychopaths, they know where to find the most vulnerable point of you. They know where to, like, what you need to be charmed. So he probably was saying that shit like, oh yeah, I'm just an honest French guy trying to make it work in this unforgiving English world, like, you
Yeah,
know.
and probably like saying that they were against him because that he's French and
Right.
well, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh God.
I imagine. So luckily the court decided on October 26, 1987, that the children would be wards of the crown. So they were keeping the kids. The parents were going to have no access to the kids. That was their decision.
It's like it's a really bad situation when you're like praying that the kids go into foster care.
Yeah, get them out of there. Like anything is better than this, literally. So that was pretty much the conclusion of that case, because the court was suspicious about Roch. They were concerned about him. They did definitely think that he was like a potential molester. Like they thought that, he was a threat, I guess, threat to offend. But apparently they didn't really have enough of a case at that time to press any charges against him, because even Maurice had refused to testify against him. So, yeah.
She was probably scared of him.
Yeah. It's crazy the hold that those people can have on you, because she had left a year before, I think a little over a year before. And although she had gotten like her mental capacities back enough to want to reclaim her daughter, I think she probably was just like scared to the bone of him.
Yeah.
He's fucking terrifying. I would be scared. I am scared of him.
And you see him like persuading other people and just charming all other authority figures. So that's terrifying.
That's like one
and
of my things too.
Basically seeing zero punishment. Like he was in prison for 2 years. That's it, for like the death of a child.
Yeah, which is insane. Like that's kind of like my thing too. I feel like there's so many situations where like people don't really get charged for stuff. So I feel like in the past I've been like, oh, can't call the police. They're not going to help. Like I feel like that's a thing where you feel like the authority figures can't help, and so anyways, in the meantime, here's what was going on at the commune while this whole child services case was going down. Well, Roch was busy getting drunk and ranting about being the master of life and death, and like torturing and abusing his followers, essentially. So at this point, I pretty much found a list, not even a list, but paragraphs of description of just like torture after torture. It goes on for a really, really long time, one thing after the other. Here's some lighter of the things that he did. That included breaking one of his wives' ribs with steel-toed boots and pulling out 11 of one of the male followers' teeth with pliers. These are the lighter things that he did.
These and I bet there was no general anesthetic.
No, I don't think so.
11 teeth.
Doctor, but God. Yeah, 11 teeth with pliers. Imagine. Fucking imagine. I don't want to lose one of my teeth, let alone 11.
I actually, side note, was born with no wisdom teeth. I've actually never had teeth removed. It's one of my brags.
We know you're highly evolved. You don't have wisdom teeth.
In case you didn't know.
Yeah, that's good.
But I can't imagine. Like I've never had a tooth pulled for any reason. Yeah. But it sounds like the most horrifying thing, especially because I'm like I'm terrified of the dentist.
Me too. And I had my wisdom teeth out and I'm still mad about it. Like I'm still like angry at the doctor and shit. So yeah, anyways, that's the shit. So here's a funny little side note relevant to this podcast. So last time I was at your house, Madison, I had printed out all of my notes, but for some reason, we only picked up half of the notes from the printer, and the printer was at Madison's mother-in-law's house, who is a very like non.
She's a lovely woman. Mary
Yeah, like
Lucy, if you're listening, I'm so
yeah,
sorry. What happened was I sent my husband to go print the pages, and he didn't realize that the paper had run out halfway through. So
oh
he
yeah,
just thought it was finished. So then when they turned on the printer the next day and like went to go print something, all your notes came out first.
yeah. So literally, the part that it printed at that she saw, it was this part. It was the brutal fucking graphic descriptions of all the shit he was doing to his followers. Like, could not have a worse possible. I mean, any of these pages are pretty bad, but this was like.
And she showed up at my door with it and was like, "Oh, I think these are yours because of the content."
These must belong to Madison. But yeah, so that happened.
Sorry.
But yeah, okay, Madison. So I had initially said I ended up just like cutting that whole section out of my notes because I was like, you know what? It just fucking goes on one thing after another. And I'm already getting into such a like dark mood. I mean, when I'm talking about it with you, it's fine. But when I'm reading it by myself on a rainy day, I'm like, I just started feeling like this like cloud overtaking me. I don't even know how to describe it, but
I think that like normal people feel that way when they read about this type of stuff. I think that's like a regular like thing to feel when you hear these type of things. But I really want to know like what she read.
Okay, so all right, so I had initially just completely taken out on my notes because I kind of just didn't want to like go over it and put it all into sentences and whatever. But also the reason that I kind of cut it out was because I have two really specific incidents that I wanted to go over. Both of them have a ton of graphic detail, and those two incidents actually ended up having a very big impact on what happened in the story. So the information of the list of tortures is all out there on the internet. Do you want me to look and read one of them just to add some detail? Or should we just go to the... Yeah, should we let the lovely listeners just find it on their own if they want to, and we'll go on to the main stories? Or do you want to hear...
Okay, give me one and let's see. And then I'll say, maybe give me another.
All right.
We'll see how bad it is.
So I'm gonna read it from the article. So I'm kind of gonna like skim it and read over it.
Yeah, you can just quote the article.
Okay, let me see here.
I've been gearing up for this for weeks, so I'm ready.
I guess I had started telling you this one when we were talking earlier, but okay, so I'll read it. I forgot the article. It's on Murderpedia. We're gonna credit the article, but so let's see. So if you recall Giselle, she was Roch's first wife. Yeah, she was the one who like convinced him to marry her, hoping that he would be cool, and he turned out to be literally the polar opposite of cool.
She didn't end up leaving, right? She was there the whole time?
At this point, she was still there. Yeah. So February 1987, Roch threw a hunting knife at her, creating a wound 3 inches deep in her thigh, which immediately began gushing blood. His response was to go and get another beer and go to sleep. When he awoke 2 hours later, a clot had formed in her leg, which had swollen. Roch decided, fucking of course, to operate, pressing the leg to cause the wound to reopen and probing it with a red-hot iron file and pouring cup after cup of boiling water on the leg.
Why would you pour boiling water on the leg? What does that do?
He's a doctor, Madison. How dare you question? How dare you question his
Why? Why?
I know.
Like, did he think that would like...
Even if somebody poured boiling water on you, that's already horrible. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's like
that is already
serious
really
burns.
Yeah, so that a week later, the wound was shockingly infected. So Roch decided to fill the wound with salt, olive oil, and spruce gum, which sounds like actually the leg healed a bit, and she actually tried to escape, but then a few days later she went back. Yeah. In this I think it was in this section or maybe later, there was this thing where a lot of them would like escape, but then they'd come back. Like if he was really pissed off and drunk, they would go hide in the woods for a couple days and then come back. So that was like a thing that happened. So that was one. There's like a few things where it's just like list after list. Gabrielle, who is really important in the story later and who is like honestly my hero for how fucking brave she is, he did a bunch of shit to her. He whipped her in the eye with his belt. He stuck a hypodermic needle in her back with an unknown substance and twisted it so the tip broke off under her skin, which we fucking hate needles. So, and I hate eyes, anything with eyes. So that is like, wow, that's horrifying. I know the needle thing, right? And okay,
Jesus Christ.
He burned her breast and genitals with a torch. He had Jacques,
torch.
Yeah, just like why? He had Jacques the henchman cut off her left pinky finger with a pair of wire cutters. He broke her fingers with a board. He made her cut a hole in the ice of a pond and jump into the freezing water, which actually that's a very popular health treatment now. So thanks, Roch. Cold plunging, very good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For like 3 weeks, I took some cold showers and like was like, yeah,
I know.
it. But now I can't do it.
I want to get more into it because I used to do this thing where I would like go in a sauna and then I would take a cold shower and it was like I never felt so healthy and alive. So I want to like do that.
I was like, everyone's like, you feel so healthy when you take cold showers, and I'm like, where's the health? I don't.
No,
feel
I
it.
I don't think so with just the cold. I think you need the hot
And the cold.
Yeah.
Well, I would do it after I worked out, so I'd like be sweating and then go in.
Yeah, but like, if you pause to the point where the sweat starts cooling and drying on you, then it's shitty. That's how I feel.
Yeah, you have to go right in. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, so I guess Roch was into that.
And okay, look, here's like there's a bit of a debate, I think. I predict, and like I think it's reasonable, of like us coming on here and just like saying like just horrible things and like making it like, you know, like murder porn or whatever. You know what I mean? And like I'm sure a lot of people probably have a problem with that type of thing.
Exploitative.
Yes, but I do think that at least some of it is relevant to like understand the depths of like how depraved this person is.
Yeah, I mean the information's out there. The way I see it is like the information's out there and we're just talking about it. Like we obviously don't condone it. We think it's super fucked up and wrong. We're not glamorizing it. We're not like fantasizing about it. We're not admiring it in any way. Like we think it's disgusting and horrible, but we just think it's interesting at the same time to see like the depths that a human, like a group of humans did this. Like that's
somebody came up with doing all this stuff and a group of people endured it.
They allowed it to happen. He would time after time execute these things, which I think is interesting because you know how he would like cry for remorse and stuff. I kind of feel like he
that's such like an abusive boyfriend thing to do.
Yeah, typical. But yeah, I guess he like just became desensitized to it, or he was just so angry like and hateful himself. It's like, you know, obviously a lot of this happened when he was drunk, so he would get super wasted and, you know, lowered inhibitions, all this stuff. So but yeah, do I go on or shall I get back to the main story? Because there is a lot more.
Give me two more, and then we'll go back. And I'm just kind of arbitrarily doing this because I'm curious, but also like let's not maybe not overdo it.
Okay, I told you the leg with Giselle.
Yeah.
A lot of it is kind of like just like one thing. It's like one sentence thing. Like a lot of it isn't necessarily like detailed explanations. There's this one.
Give me 3 bullet points.
Okay, because there's this one with Gabrielle that's like really explicit that I almost like. That is like a 10. Like,
okay, I want to know now.
That one. I'll just tell you that one, and then we'll go back to the main story because Gabrielle is really important in the story. She like respect. She is a fucking brave woman. So okay. At one point, I don't actually know how this happened, because you know how he had like done all that shit to her with like whipping her in the eye, needle in her back, blah blah blah. Apparently, at one point, her uterus prolapsed to the point where after a hard day of work, the organ was like protruding outside of her vagina. I'm not really sure how. I guess maybe he was like beating her or something, and it caused like the uterus to prolapse.
It wasn't during pregnancy, was it?
Maybe, I don't know. It doesn't say. And so he attempted to fix, just that like idea of the pain, the horror of that. Like, you know what I mean? That's insane. And then so he attempted to fix it himself, punching it back inside her body and fashioning a wooden cone to plug it up. And then she fled to a women's shelter, but then she returned to the compound instead of seeing a doctor. His next treatment, Dr. Roch's next treatment was to fit a piece of string across the exposed portion of the uterus and yank at it like a loose tooth. Yeah.
Did he pull it out?
Actually, I think so. It was a whole year before she would have the opportunity to get a partial hysterectomy. Because this is another part of the story. I didn't even include it in the story, but Roch was like going to Utah a lot because he started traveling to Utah because he got in with some of the Latter-day Saints church there, like the Mormons.
As soon as you said Utah, I was like, oh, he's
fucking of course. Sorry, Mormons, we know you guys aren't like this. But yeah, there's some of that in the articles I read, but it wasn't super pertaining to the main points, so I kind of just left it out. But when he was away, she went to the hospital. But yeah, so there you go, just a day in the life.
Damn, bruh.
Yeah,
that's fucked up.
So fucked up. And there's many more. There's just things like, oh, he like broke this guy's ribs, oh, he pulled this guy's teeth, oh, he cut this guy, you know, it's just like a lot of like, oh, he beat the shit out of this guy, he punched this woman when she was pregnant so she miscarried. Like, it's a lot of just that.
Well, I'm sure I assume that this ends in some sort of trial, but like, those are all like separate charges.
Yeah.
So I'm sure they all came out that way because that's how you're going to get him. I'm assuming, I'm making a lot of assumptions here, but that's how you're going to get him, is just like on a billion smaller charges.
Right. So through all of this, all of these like ongoing torture, mutilation, abuse that was going on, none of the followers actually ever blamed Roch. Obviously, he's the representation of God, all that stuff. He's the leader. So let me read you a letter from one of his followers that kind of reflects on how what their attitudes were towards him during all of this shit. So, good day, my master. I would have liked to have talked to you yesterday evening, but I think it is preferable to write these things down rather than saying them, for fear of talking too much. Doesn't like it if you talk too much. I am going to talk to you about the last fit of anger that your master, probably God, exercised through you. I really believe that what you did doesn't come from you, but from someone much higher. For my part, I really believe that you were possessed by a very powerful spirit. That's what I saw in what you did. The throwing of the knife, the rifle shot, the harm done to Mammy, which was Giselle. My eyes saw things that went beyond them. My body is very afraid of all these things. I understand it very well because of the law of death in which it exists. But within myself, I am well. I am very well and very happy to belong to a real master who himself belongs to the only real master of life. Love, Rachel, who is really Solange.
Oh, right, because he gave them new names.
Yeah. Rachel was like the name he gave her, but Solange was her name. So that's the letter she wrote, Solange. She's about to actually come up in the next thing that I'm going to talk about. But yeah, so basically his brainwashing was that the spirit of God was angry and working through him, and he wasn't actually doing any of this shit.
I guess it's like, my question is like, what do you make of that? Like, what do you think this person's mindset is? Like, why do you think it's like that? I do think that it's like, as we've spoken about before, like they're so sucked into it, but like if you're at a point where you're kind of reflecting on it, how do you get there?
So what I think is that a lot of these people, all of them originally came from the Seventh-day Adventist Church before they formed their own commune. Mm-hmm. So they have a religious background. And I know Roch was raised Catholic. So what I'm imagining is that they were probably always raised with God being a huge part of their lives. So most likely they do have some level of implicit belief in God and a higher power. Right. And when you're going through so much like abusive fucked up, torturous experiences, a part of you wants to deny that it's really happening, because that's like your mind's way to protect you, to allow you to continue to survive, if that makes sense. Like, it's a trauma response when you're going through those scenarios, to kind of like block it out and deny it and repress it. And that's why there's like post-traumatic stress disorder, which, shout out this guy Madison Cheeatow on Instagram, he talks about it's not really post-traumatic stress disorder, it's post-traumatic stress response, because it's like a normal response to stress. But the idea being that like a lot of people, like, you know, they're like in wars or whatever, that's a lot of what's commonly known for PTSD, and they're like doing it, they're killing, they're watching, you know, they're seeing all these things, and then when they come back, that's when they're mentally fucked up.
Right, because like, they can like relax finally.
Yeah, they're away from it, so their body can release that protection that it was putting on itself to be in denial, essentially, and just keep going through it. And then once that threat's actually away, it doesn't happen right away. Generally, the symptoms will come up over time, where your body's like now releasing literally the physiological memories, which is like the sense that like you stored the stress in your body. So it starts like releasing all of that, plus like the mental anguish of it all. And then you're, you know, like projecting it onto other shit. So I'm assuming that must have happened with a lot of these people. I'm sure they had a lot of mental struggles after this, as anybody would, because this is actually insane. But yeah, I do think that like in that scenario, it is a little bit safer to believe that, yeah, it's God, you're cool. The guy that we put all of our trust in as a leader isn't the one doing this, because it's impossible to make sense of that in your brain. Like, you convince yourself you deserve it, you know, you're sinful, whatever, but I do think that,
it's like, a way more comfortable thought to have.
Yeah. Like, I think it's I don't know if the word defense mechanism is a way to describe it, but I do think it's a very normal psychological process to try and make sense of it and try and, like, you know, justify it, I guess. But yeah, so let's fast forward to the fall of 1988. Things are about to get disgusting and murdery. Yeah. I'm surprised it took this long. I mean, unfortunately, a couple kids passed away, but Roch wasn't. Well, maybe
he hadn't killed any adults at this point, and it wasn't him who technically killed the children. The first
Samuel, the first kid. There's what's the word?
Conflicting.
There was conflicting stories. One of them said that he just like castrated the kid or circumcised the kid, and that's what caused him to die. So
we learned that he's so friggin' good at
just chopping the whole hip off.
Oh my God.
I know. He's like, his doctor goals, like the way that he thinks he's a doctor, it's like, you're not. You're just really fucking not. And you shouldn't be. And you shouldn't be allowed to do this shit. But anyways, so Solange, I don't know if I'm saying it right, but so she is the one who had written that letter that I just read.
Mm-hmm.
So fall of 1988, she began to feel sick. And I mean, you really never
feel sick being
feeling sick. Yeah, true. Don't tell
Yeah,
Roch.
true, because he's going to try to diagnose you with cancer and give you grapes.
Yeah. Or he's going to fucking put olive oil in your wound and put a hot torch on it. So Roch decided that there was something wrong with her liver and he should probably perform a surgery on it. Yeah. Like, dear fucking God. Okay. So he got drunk, very drunk, as one should always do before performing
to prep for surgery.
Yeah. I think that's what every surgeon does before. And so this isn't funny. It's like sad laughter that I'm laughing right now. But after he went around strangling all the women, he was just going around being like, fuck you, like strangling them. I don't know if that's what he was saying. Oh, here's what he was saying. Actually, I have the quote. Actually, this isn't I don't know if this was a quote directly or if I paraphrased it, but it was, do you know your breath belongs to me? Strangle. Do you know your breath belongs to me? Just so you know, I could end your life kind of situation with the women. God, I guess. And then that's kind of like his surgery prep, you know. It's good to have like a preparation routine.
Psyching himself up.
Yeah. It's important. Like, you got to kind of prepare yourself to give a surgery. So get drunk, strangle women, play God, and now he's ready for surgery.
Oh my God.
All
This
right,
man
here we
is so ridiculous.
Is he not the worst? Like,
He's the worst.
why is he like this? I don't understand. It's like I almost feel like once you can crush people and keep them down, like they feed you. Like it's like he's like
Yeah.
so
He
sadistic that
feeds
he's
off
like,
their
yeah,
energy,
yeah. I mean, some
off their
people
like
are that.
suffering.
Yeah, I've known people like that who genuinely like have no excuse for how much they like what's the word, get pleasure from like other suffering. Okay, surgery description.
Uh,
Let's get into it. Very professional surgery.
All right.
So first he had Solange lie down naked on a table. He then attempted to insert an enema tube into her rectum filled with molasses, oil, and water.
Molasses?
Yeah.
Why molasses?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like those things like molasses, oil, and water, they're like natural things. So, okay, but like what? I don't know. So, he also started pressing and punching on her stomach to prepare her for the surgery, which apparently she tried to like put her arms up to stop him. And he just said, put your arms back down. And she did. Like, I really think that at this point, a lot of the women were just like, the soul was gone from them and they were just like existing. You know what I mean? Like, they just shut down. Like, they were just
how
like,
else would you live?
Yeah, exactly. So she was like, all right, this is happening now. He also inserted a tube down her throat, which even that is like, get me the fuck out of there.
Yeah.
And he told everyone to like suck air and blow it into the tube, prepping her for surgery. So then he took a knife and used it to cut a 5-inch long vertical incision on her right side below her ribs. 5-inch long. Then he ripped out a piece of tissue about 4 inches long and tore it out, telling her, there, you're going to be all right now. Fucking.
And is she just like lying there with no medication?
She's just, yeah, definitely no medication. And I don't even think it never mentioned any of them drinking. I don't know if they were allowed to or if they weren't. It's never mentioned, but obviously he was like wasted all the time. So that. And then he got somebody else to sew her up. He didn't do it. And she got up. He then gave her a warm bath, which made her feel worse. So then he gave her a cold bath.
You're not supposed to get incisions wet, first of all.
Yeah.
And
none of this is like, I don't think any of this is okay.
He just cut her open, grabbed a random piece of tissue and sewed her back up?
Yeah.
That was your brilliant surgery? Like,
yeah,
Jesus Christ, that's not even, it's not even impressive. Like,
it's bad. It's bad. She had a stomach pain. So he's like, here's a random fucking, he's like, I'll give you a stomach pain. Yeah. Like,
it's like, it doesn't even make any sort of logical sense. Like, I like, look, I'm definitely understanding that it's like totally fucked and like really horrific and torturous. But like, where, like, I can't even find a weird logical strand. Give her an enema, put a tube down her throat and blow air into it, cut her open, grab a random piece of tissue, not even an organ, and then sew her back up and put her in a bath. Like,
I know.
It's just a series of random actions.
And I think the thing with it too is that like he would get so drunk, and I think he just had this like itching to like be sadistic when he was drunk, and so he just kind of wanted to like have someone to torture. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Clearly, it's just pure torture. And he's just a psychopath.
He cries the next day when he sobers up. It's crazy. Like, I'm guessing from a lot of the descriptions, some of them come later too, he would be like absolutely blackout wasted. Like, he would be fucked up while doing a lot of this stuff, which is, again, like, I do not want you operating on me ever, but let alone when you're like obviously
wasted.
But so I think like that side of him really only, I think it came out a lot to lesser extents, but I think the really brutal side came out when he was drunk. But yeah, so gave her a cold bath. Then she went back to her bed and blood started coming out of her mouth and she died. Unsurprisingly. Not
shocking.
Yeah. So later on, doctors had ruled that she died of acute peritonitis. I might be saying that wrong, which is basically fluids leaking into the abdominal cavity.
Yeah, because whatever he tore probably just started some internal bleeding. Yeah.
So I would
Oof.
love to tell you that this is where Roch actually left her the fuck alone, but unfortunately that isn't the case.
Oh, she's dead and he's still going.
Yeah, he's still fucking going. So apparently he was really upset at first that she died, which like it's like
Cool, you
what?
did that.
I can't. Like, yeah, you should be upset, but also like you should not be allowed to exist. So actually apparently he tried to kill himself after with an overdose of Tylenol extra strength. And then he was like jumping into the water trying to drown himself, but then he decided actually like he had a vision or whatever that God actually didn't want him to die. So
of course.
you know, God really still needs you to complete his mission of cutting off people's toes. Like, you know, that's God, man.
This is the worst, man. Like I can't think of somebody who I've heard of, and I've heard of a lot of fucked up individuals. I can't think of anyone worse.
To me, it's like the level of like how sadistic he is.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people like kidnap people, they torture people, they have people in a cult, they abuse them, but like he's like the stuff. I mean, obviously he killed Solange, but like literally he killed her, but he would like mutilate them a lot. Like I'm sure there's been other people as evil as him, but like, dude, you fucking suck.
Yeah,
You're just terrible. You're just not a good person in any way.
Yeah.
Anyways, so
go on.
Let's get right back into it. So apparently Roch started having dreams that Solange was inside his body and that she was meant to be reborn from his semen. I mean, not that far-fetched with everything else, I guess. So it was about a week or so later. I'm not 100% clear on the timeline, but he ordered one of his followers to dig up Solange's body from where they had buried it. He told Gabrielle, sweet, poor Gabrielle, to open up Solange's body and pour vinegar on it to keep worms away, and then they buried her again. Well, a few days later, he had his followers dig her up again.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Although her body was starting to decay at this point, Roch had plans for her. Here we go with his plans to rebirth her, revive her, whatever the fuck. So first, he got his henchman Jacques to drill a hole in her skull, and then he masturbated into the hole, convinced that his quote-unquote seed on her rotting brain would revive her, bringing her back to life. Let's just take this in. Dude.
I don't even, like, you know when you laugh because you're just like really uncomfortable and like can't,
it's like a horror laugh.
That is like, for future reference, everybody, I am a laugh when I'm uncomfortable type of person. So excuse me if I laugh at impromptu times, but like, what the fuck?
I know. I was like, remember when I told you I was reading this and there was times where I was like, should we even talk about this? Like now I think we honestly should. If there's any proper environment to discuss this, it's here. So it's fine. We are talking about it. But I'm literally reading this and I'm like, oh my fucking God. Are you kidding me?
Like there's so many thoughts going on in my head. Like, yes, that is like just one of the most insane things I've ever heard. But like, what is she gonna do when she wakes up? She's rotting. She's ripped open. She's full of vinegar. Like, what is she gonna do? She got a hole in her head full of semen.
Yeah, it cures. You know, it's reviving. I know.
This is just so much information.
Yeah, take it all in, process it, and now let me tell you this.
Okay.
Shockingly, she did not come back to life.
Wow. Okay.
Who would have guessed?
That's surprising.
Yeah. So they ended up cremating her body as a group because one of the women followers had said, oh, you know, Roch, her wish before she died was to be cremated. Like that was how she wanted to go. So they're like, all right, we'll cremate her.
I bet that person was just like, end this. Like,
honestly,
stop.
Yeah. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, he's doing all, like, this is what we talked about before, too, where it's like, what's worse, doing fucked up shit to a dead body or doing it to someone alive? Solange, she got both, but it's like, imagine just being there and seeing him do this shit. Imagine being Jacques, man. Jacques is fucked.
It's worse for the victim to have things done to you while you're alive. Absolutely. Yeah. It's worse for bystanders. I think
both are bad.
I still think it's worse for them to see him torturing people who are alive, but it's just like a whole other level of fucked up to like be fucking with a dead body, man. Like that's just so wrong.
I know. So they cremated her, but before they did, he made Gabrielle remove one of her ribs, Solange's ribs, so Roch could carry it around with him, like go fuck yourself. And then after
like on a keychain or something?
Yeah, in a leather, wrapped in leather, apparently, just carried it around with him. Because he was like really sad about her death. He actually, because remember, I know, because remember how he
Hanna, just I'm learning this for the first time. Like,
see, I told you.
I know, and I'm like,
so I changed it to a 10. Is this a 10?
This is a 10. No, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm totally here for it. And like, I'm like, it's weird to say, but I'm glad to be hearing this. But like, what?
I know. Hell?
That's so.
I mean, with Solange, it kind of is, but yeah, I know. And yeah, so like it okay, so I had mentioned this before a little bit. I guess I'll just slide it in here. So you know how he had been like going to Utah, involved in whatever the church. He had gotten the one guy that was like his friend in the church to perform a post-mortem marriage to him and Solange because he was like so sad that she died and he wanted to be married and revive her. Like literally, go fuck yourself. You are trash. Yeah. So that's why I guess he wanted her rib. Anyway, so after she was cremated, they all took some of her like bones to keep and put some fragments in a jar with olive oil to preserve it, and he would regularly masturbate into the jar in an attempt to bring her back to life. just carry around this jar.
It's just so ridiculous.
I know.
Like it's a joke.
Why are you like this? I know. I don't know if he believed his own bullshit. I really don't. I honestly kind of don't think he did. I feel like he's the type of guy who like gets off on like lying and like manipulating to people. Like I don't think he believed this shit. I think he was just super sadistic and he just liked to torture people, honestly.
Yeah, and at this point it's like torturing the other people because he's like it's like he's killing her all over again or he's still torturing her. It's like this poor woman is dead and he's still going and like jerking off on top of her. Like, oh my god.
I mean, he would get them to participate in a lot of the shit. Like a lot of it was like he would get this person to step on this person's ribs. He would get this person to cut off this person's toe.
Which is like so much more fucked up.
Yeah, it's
than just doing it yourself.
I know. Just everything about it is really, really fucked up. But yeah, so despite all of this, he continued to maintain control and continued with the same old fucked up shit while also managing to hide the birth of 2 more of his kids from CAS. I believe all the other kids were still in the foster homes. Thank God they weren't there for this. But he had 2 more kids. And he also had managed to hide Solange's death. So the police had no idea what had happened to her. How do you feel, Madison? Checking in?
Not good. I mean, like, look, I feel fine. Like, at this point, I'm like not worried about going to sleep yet.
Yeah,
but true. That it's. I think it like hasn't sunken in yet. And like when I turn this off and I go to bed and I start rethinking it, we'll see how I feel tomorrow.
Yeah, at least I don't have pictures. I feel like if I had any type of picture or video, I mean, I'm sure there was no like videotapes being made during this situation.
Well, we'll find and post some like regular, like just like pictures of like what he looks like and like what the father. Like, we won't post anything like horrific or anything, but
yeah,
it's a lot to take in.
Yeah, it is.
Hanna, like, how are you doing after researching this for like weeks? Are you like dying?
I told you I was in such a like I don't even know how to describe the feeling of just like like I was so just like I was like I need to take my dogs out. I need to just take my dogs for a walk and just like enjoy the innocent company of my dogs because like I can't just like be in this room reading this on this computer like that. Because I was going over the notes today and I was like, because I've read them so many times now that like I know all these things pretty much off by heart. So it's like it doesn't have the newness and the shock of it anymore.
That I'm getting
right now. It makes me feel gross. But yeah, I think that like the level of his drunkenness, I do think, like, I mean, we've been there where we'll act really out of character when we're really drunk, I'm sure. I know
Sure.
I have. So I do think that, like, to an extent, not that he had like a split personality, but I do think that, like, he was able to live with himself. You know what I mean? Like, it was almost like I don't know how to describe it. Like, when he was drunk, it was like permission to do whatever kind of thing and hit for himself.
Yeah. Well, I think some people, if you get really far into it, you're like, oh, what? That's another person. That's not me. And you just like make up
Yeah.
that it's not you, and then that's how you're able to live with it.
Yeah.
And
Like this.
especially somebody who's saying that like God is telling me to do this,
Right.
then you're just extra being like, oh, well, it's not me.
Yeah. I
This
do
other
not feel
entity
that he
that's
believed
forcing
for a
me.
second. Like, I really don't feel that he believed God was working through him. I don't.
No, but I think it's possible that he was like, he could say it enough to like, just enough to make himself, just to lie to himself,
Yeah, I know.
but knowing deep down that it's not true.
Just kind of like feed into his own bullshit a little bit.
Yeah. How else do you live with that? I guess you have to just really like be a complete psychopath and have zero empathy. And really, what is it? Is it sadistic or masochistic? I think it's masochistic where you like enjoy being tortured, and
Yes.
sadistic when you enjoy torturing
Yeah.
others. It's just she's purely sadistic.
He really is. Like, I genuinely think I think he obviously he had the whole God complex. Like, I think he got like the early rushes of leadership when he was like a younger man, and he was like what's the word? He was like ascending in the in the Adventist church. Like, I think he obviously feeling power is like a good feeling, I guess. I mean, it is kind of a good feeling. And then, like, I mean, I know for myself, like, when I've been around people who really like subjugate themselves to me, it makes me feel like, okay, you want that role, so I'll give you that role. Like, not to this extent, obviously, but like when I've had friendships with people who are like really like submissive to me, I guess I've just been like, okay, guess this is how it is. Like, I think once the followers put themselves in that position, he's like, all right.
But also he seems like a person who like does not experience empathy or like sympathy and whatever. So like to him it's not even just like, okay, whatever. It's like, yes, I enjoy this.
Yeah.
And I
think
don't care about your pain or suffering.
I also like he would cry and show remorse, but like, I don't know, maybe he was just hungover.
Yeah, and who knows if he was like, psychopaths are very it's very common for them to just fake human emotion in order
Right.
to benefit them. So like maybe that was the way that he thought he could trick everyone into thinking that like into like separating himself from his drunken self and like being like, oh my God, that was terrible what I did. Like obviously it was my fault because God told me to, but like that's horrible.
I know. It's absolutely insane. Okay, so I wish I could tell you that was it, but
Oh
there's
my God.
yeah. So if you remember our girl Gabrielle, she had dealt with like that really fucked up abuse, which the least of which was getting one of the other followers to cut off one of her pinky fingers with a wire cutter. But I told you about all the other shit. I wasn't originally going to, but this woman, like,
I made you.
yeah, that's okay. This woman is really fucking resilient. Like, she went through so much stuff, and she was about to experience so much worse. And like, just the fact that she survived all this, like, I have so much fucking respect for her. I can't even just like, I cannot possibly imagine everything she went through. But okay, so July 26th, 1989. Guess how this fucking starts off? Roch gets drunk, of course. And on this day, several of his followers very wisely snuck away into the wilderness to hide. This was something that they had started to do when he would get into these rages. They were like, you know what? Let's just hide. We don't
Let's
really
just
want to
not get surgeries done on us today.
Yeah, exactly. They were smart. But Gabrielle didn't manage to hide that day. And so while he's in the cabin, like getting wasted, he decides, hey, Gabrielle, it looks like one of your pinky fingers is stiff. Not the one that he'd already gotten cut off. The other one. That pinky finger looks stiff, Gabrielle. Why don't you put your hand on the kitchen table and I'll take a look at that for you? So this doesn't surprise me at all, but instead of even bothering to look at her finger, he just went ahead and stabbed her hand with a hunting knife so that she was pinned to the table.
Oh,
stabbed her hand,
God.
stabbed the knife through her hand, pinned to the table.
Bruh.
Yeah, like, okay. So while blood was pouring out of her hand, she sat there and she just forced herself to stay conscious for 45 minutes while Roch went to go get himself some more beer to drink and drank his beer. Yeah. I know. I know.
I don't even know what to say
At a certain point, you just lose words to describe it. It's like, this isn't torture. This is like beyond, like, I'm sure obviously torture is horrible. Like, there's really bad tortures, but this is like, this is just what? Like, why? It's like, nothing about it is okay. Nothing about it makes sense.
I can already feel my mind like hardening and being like trying to desensitize myself from it.
See, humans do that naturally. You try and like, because even me, like, I'm like, oh, this is a story. Like, obviously I know what happened. Like, fucking respect to Gabrielle. Like, she is honestly like such a brave woman. But yeah, like I kind of see it as like, okay, like, I mean, I think like photographs and videos kind of make it more real, and like seeing the photos of him and then seeing the photos of his cult members, like you just see, like they just look very, very, like in the photos that I've seen, there's not many on Google Images, which is all that I've looked at so far, but there's nothing that shows any like blood or gore or anything on them, but the expressions on their faces is like,
well, because I'm sure nobody was photographing these events, so there's no way we're gonna ever see that kind of stuff, but it's just the result.
But yeah, so all right, it's about to get like way fucking worse. So yeah. So 45 minutes, Gabrielle is forcing herself to stay conscious. Roch's going to get more wasted. He comes back to check on her, and he noticed that her entire arm was blue at that point. So at that point, I think he said something like, oh, that doesn't look so good, does it?
Oh my God, he's going to cut off her whole arm.
Oh, yeah. Yep. At that point, he began cutting off her arm between her elbow and shoulder with a carpet knife, which I looked up what that is.
What is even a carpet knife?
I know. I didn't know. I was like, is that a typo? What is that? I looked it up. It's a blade that's like curved at the end, like a hook at the end.
I'm going to just Google that right now.
Sure. Some of the images that came up just looked like an X-Acto knife, but I don't think it was an X-Acto knife. I think it was the curved one.
Like.
Do you see it?
Something like, here, let me pull it up.
It looks like a hook at the end, kind of. Hold it a bit higher.
Oh, wait, hold on. I gotta.
Yeah. Like a curved blade, essentially, with a hook at the end, kind of. So he's hacking away at it, which I imagine took quite a while, whittling away at it. And he was too drunk to complete with the carpet knife. So after getting another one of the wives to kind of like help, I think he got her to cut Gabrielle's arm until the point where like the bone was exposed.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know. Nothing about this is okay. Like, this is not okay. It's insane. So there's this whole description of how he finished the job. There was like a stump on the ground. He got her to put her arm over it, and he swung a dull meat cleaver to finish severing her arm off.
And so she just was like, what is she doing at this point?
This is what it says. Apparently, she did not cry out once the whole time. Yeah. Like, do you remember the shit he did to her with the uterus ripping out, with the needle in the back, with that whipped eye?
Yes. She just is a broken woman. Oh my God.
Are you like, it's insane. Yeah. The fact that like humans can survive this, I think it really does say a lot for like the resilience of a human. Like,
no, you're so right.
Yeah. Like, we want to survive. Like, we really do. And I think that's just really, like, our survival instinct is so strong. I think that's really what was going on here. She was just in, like, shut down survival mode. Like, I'm just not going to try and provoke this guy any worse because, I mean, I don't know how much fucking worse I could get, but I guess look at poor Solange. So that happened. I'm assuming Roch went off to get more drunk or went to pass out or whatever. Then Gabrielle went to a women's shelter the next day. Thank God for her. However,
with her arm like stump, like
yeah. She just went to a women's shelter. I know.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm like sprawled out in here, like just.
I know. Any hardship we've ever faced in life, we're like, guess it wasn't so bad.
Yeah, I'm just like sorry for every time I cried about something stupid, like doing my taxes or whatever.
Although I will say that that is a very normal thing for people, like not necessarily us, but like in general, like people who've been through shit, they're always like, oh, but other people have it worse than me. So everyone, your trauma is valid, but this is insane. So anyway, so she went to the women's shelter. However, fucking henchman Jacques goes and told her, hey, come back. And she's like, all right, I'll come back. So he brought her back.
Like, who is taking care of her arm? Who is sewing her up? Who is creating a situation in which she can live with a cut off arm? Like,
I know.
How do you not bleed to death?
I don't know. That part wasn't in the articles I read. So maybe like it was one of those situations where he got someone else to sew it again, or maybe bandaged it or something. I really don't know.
Like, what do they do when you have to get an amputation for whatever reason? Like, how do they like make it okay to like? What do they do to the end of it?
I'm not sure. I don't know, and it didn't say. But here, it'll go a little bit more into it. So maybe I will be able to answer your question. I'm not sure.
Right. So, all right. Okay.
Yeah. So
okay.
I know. Like, and there's things I omitted. There's some things I omitted about the children too. But I just was like, all right, let's just brush across it with a vaguer description because,
Yeah, so, no, fair enough. We don't need that. We don't need
like
everything.
The graphic detail that I've already spoken, some of it has been omitted. Let's just say that.
All right.
Okay. So after a couple of days, Gabrielle's back after going to the women's shelter. Roch decided that like what was left of her arm looked infected. So, of course, time to operate again.
No. Yeah. Why?
I know.
Why?
I know. So, yeah. Time to
and in all fairness to you, Hannah's been warning me. I'm like, no, you gotta do it. You gotta do it. It's gonna be good. Oh my God.
Just wait. I'm glad you're having this reaction because I mean, I know I have gotten a little desensitized to it from reading it so much, just like going over my notes. But yeah.
I was even like, I was like, oh my God, I'm scared that it's gonna be like not that bad, and I'm gonna be like, oh, okay, whatever. Yeah. But like,
I wouldn't lead you astray.
No, you've very accurately described how this was gonna go. So
I know.
Honest, there you go.
I mean, it takes a lot. Like for us, it takes a lot to shock us. I feel like just because we are a little desensitized, and obviously we talk about so many murders, but this, I mean, honestly, they all do disgust me. I'm not gonna say that they don't. They do. They freak me out. They disgust me. They feel gross. They make me feel weird. But I'm kind of like, all right, forget about it. Move on, like to my next thing. But with certain ones like this, or the fucking death photo that you showed me the other week, it's just like it stays with you. Now that death photo was like like I was just like I was not prepared for that.
I will be better at warning you.
No, it's fine. I wanted to be scared, and I was. So I was not happy, but I was like, okay, that's what I asked for.
Successful podcast.
Yeah. So
all right.
So time to operate again. He used scissors to cut out the infection that he deemed the infection, and for some other unknown fucking reason, he also cut a chunk from her breast and hit her on the head with an axe. Just like
why?
I know. So at this point, she managed to flee into the wilderness. And she was just like dazed, like she was obviously like
completely out of it. You must be at that point.
Yeah, like how are you staying alive? I don't understand. But so then after 2 days, she kind of like came to her senses, and she realized that insects had laid eggs in the wound in her head. Like this could not
wound from the hit with the axe.
Yeah, from the hit with the axe. Yeah. Boy. She went back to the commune.
What?
I know. I think they just don't think they have anywhere else to go. Like, I think they truly believe. That is a really common thing with, like, domestic violence. Like, they can convince you that you have nowhere else to go.
Yeah, no, I get that. And every time, like, this is just my visceral reactions. And it's not out of, like, judgment. It's just out of, like, I'm terrified for you to go back there.
Yeah. Like, please don't fucking go back. So she goes back. Unfortunately, Roch is still drunk and still in, like, a operating mood. So this time, there's like a couple other details I left out, but basically he heated a piece of metal and then started pressing it to the stump of her arm. And he was so drunk and so fucked up that he kept dropping the metal piece on her body until he was finally done. So that happened.
Oh my god. I'm waiting for the part where she like gets out and
yeah, good
survives.
news. She got the fuck out of there after this. Thank fucking God.
Oh my god.
I'm so glad. So August 16th, 1989, which was about 3-ish weeks after the first incident of arm cutting. I believe that was July 26th or something like that. So August 16th, Gabrielle made it to a hospital. So initially, she actually made up a fake story about her arm because I guess she just was so scared of Roch, she didn't want to implicate him.
What do you say? Like, oh, I tripped and fell. Like,
I know, that's not funny, but like, what do you? I don't know. So, but the police were called, and they were like, dude, this clearly was something that Roch did. Obviously, they kind of knew, like, you know, the court and everything.
Because they were paying attention to them.
Yeah. So they filed a charge of aggravated assault against him, and then they went to the commune on August 19th to go get this motherfucker. So they get there August 19th, and the commune was deserted at that time. So
I bet we're kind of thinking that like he knows she's gone, so he's like, okay, everyone's got to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's probably smart enough to realize like
she's not just going to nowhere.
Yeah. Like you fucked up this time, buddy. I mean, not for the first time, but with the law this time.
Yeah.
So it turned out that he'd gone back to Quebec with Jacques and then a couple of the others, while the rest of them had actually finally gone back to their families, which was like 11 years after moving to their first commune.
Wow.
A bunch of them went back, including Giselle. Giselle didn't stay with him at this point, but Jacques and a few other people did. So it took the police 6 weeks to find Roch, and they finally fucking found him. And then on October 6th, 1989, which was actually the same day, that's the day they found Roch. And that was actually the same day that his ex-wife or whatever, I don't know if they're still married, Giselle, she was no longer with him at this point. She also decided to tell the police that same exact day about Solange's death.
So separately?
Yeah, she wasn't with him. It just happened. Wow. It was a coincidence that the day he was finally caught, that was the day she went to the police as well.
What a coincidence.
Yeah. Which is good that she did that, though, because obviously he needs to be, like, sentenced for that. So originally, I don't have a ton of details and information about the trial, but I'm kind of going to give you, like, point by point of what went down.
Sure.
So originally, he was sentenced to 12 years in prison for his assault on Gabrielle, which was later shortened to 10 years because, according to the court, he showed genuine remorse and concern for the victim.
Oh, bullshit.
But I don't think that's how that works. So that,
bullshit. You chopped off her arm and a piece of her boob and you're remorseful. So
put a wound in her head and then operated on it twice more. Like, you premeditate, or not premeditated, but like, come on. No shortened sentences for you. But yeah, so the police had attempted to charge Roch with first-degree murder for Solange's death after they found out about it. But the court had ruled there wasn't enough evidence that the murder was premeditated. So then he was tried instead for second-degree murder, for which he did receive a life sentence. But his lawyers basically made a deal that was he would plead guilty to the second-degree murder charge if no further charges would be laid against him. Yeah, so I guess, like, you know, all the other people could come forward and say the shit he did to them, or maybe they'd say his role. And I mean, he was in jail for Samuel's death for criminal negligence, but it wasn't until the movie The Savage Messiah came out that the story became public that he had probably done it. Before that, it was like, oh, he died. How did that happen? Roch was there. Like, it was, you know, so.
Well, so here's the thing, because in Canada, like, a life sentence is not really a life sentence. A life sentence is usually 25 years. It is usually
25 to life or something.
25 is when you can be put on parole. And there are people who, like, they will never get out. Like Paul Bernardo, you know, he's not, like, he's up for parole, but they're not letting him out. So, like, you can assume, hopefully, that he would be one of those cases, but maybe not. And that's what the lawyers are getting at with being like, okay, you can't charge for anything else, because they know that there's like every little detail. Like, that's why you have all those bullet point things. Like, those are all separate charges.
Right. Exactly. So they were smart. The lawyers were smart to know that, I mean, this guy did so much fucking worse than second-degree murder. Yeah, take the second-degree murder charge. Also, side note, imagine being this guy's lawyer. Like, I would not sleep defending this man.
Imagine.
Yeah. So he was found guilty of second-degree murder, and on January 18th, 1993, he was sentenced to life in prison with, 1993, eligibility for parole in 1999.
Wait. He was charged in 93?
Yeah.
And he got parole in 6 years?
He was eligible for parole.
Eligible.
Yeah. Kind of weird, right? I don't know. That's what the internet said. So at this point, just a little detail, I guess. At least 3 of his followers were known to have remained loyal to him during this time, at least when he was initially in prison. So they would like visit him and be loyal and stuff, which, all right. And at that time, he had or I assume they're still around, over 20 children. They were all sent to foster homes. So there was already, the majority of them were in foster homes, but I think there were 2 more that had been born since that like first time that the children were taken. So those ones went to foster homes as well. So that, then in 2000, he was transferred to Dorchester, maybe saying that wrong, Penitentiary in New Brunswick, which is in the east coast of Canada, which is a medium security prison. So in 2002, he was rejected for parole because he was considered too high of a risk to reoffend. And after that, he never applied again for parole. So at that point, he stayed pretty quiet in prison until about 2009. At this point, there was some controversy in the media because he was trying to sell some of his artwork and poetry on the website murderauction.com.
He would.
Which had the tagline, "A true crime auction house." We like go to murderauction.com. Let's see what's on sale. His art, his drawings, and poetry, which, like, I'm not going to lie, I would be curious to see them, but I feel like
I would never pay for them, though.
Yeah. I would not pay knowing money's going to him. Like, literally,
no.
Go fuck yourself. But
it'd be interesting to see what he comes up with. But like,
yeah, it would be interesting. But I also believe, like, in my mind, I feel like the prison art is kind of insincere. Like, I feel like at that point, you know what I mean?
Well, they're just like, oh, like, there's a market for this. Like,
except for the John Wayne Gacy clowns, which are very sincere. But yeah, so the Correctional Service of Canada prevented him selling his art, and they were like, dude, you're a murderer, we're not gonna let you profit.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So our story ends on February 26, 2011. Roch, who was 63 at the time, was found dead near his cell.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine, we're not sad about it. His cellmate, Matthew Gerard McDonald, a 60-year-old convicted murderer, had stabbed Roch in the neck with a shiv. His cellmate did this.
You go, cellmate. What's his name?
I know. Matthew.
You go, Matthew.
You did us all, Matthew. So Matthew then walked over to the guards. He gave them the weapon, and he said, "That piece of shit is down on the range. Here's a knife. I've sliced him up."
Damn, Matthew.
Yeah. Not mad at all. And
I don't want to know what Matthew did. I just want to love him.
He convicted some type of murder.
I just want to be there for Matthew. Send him some cakes at Christmas time. Like,
we just send him a gift. Thanks.
Thanks for your work, Matt.
I know. Thanks for your service. So, but yeah, he was already serving a life sentence for another murder, but he pleaded guilty to second-degree murder for this, and he got another life sentence. Which honestly, he should just be getting an award.
Yeah.
Yeah, he took one for the team. Yeah, that's the story of Roch Thériault and the Anthill kids. It's a lot. He is a fucking maniac. And I'm telling you, I did leave out some of the details. Like, I ended up going into them because you asked.
Yeah. But and like, I'm definitely going to be doing some Googling myself. But like, holy shit balls, motherfucker. That was fucked up, Hannah.
I know. I've been waiting to tell you this for like a month.
Hannah, that was a 10. That's on in my books. That's a 10.
it honestly, like, how could it get worse, honestly?
Please, audience, if you made it this far, which I don't blame you if you did, please
Yeah.
present me with somebody worse than that. Please. If you
I
know of
know.
them, please let me know.
Because he checks every box. Like
Yeah.
every bad thing you could possibly do to a human or multiple humans, children, women, men, like everybody, deaths, mutilation, like psychological, physical, every like possible isolation, like starvation, sexual abuse, like literally every possible bad thing you could do, this guy did.
Yeah. The only
And
thing worse would have been if like more people died. But
yeah,
like
yeah,
even now, it's like all these people are just living with the knowledge and like the memories of
right.
that and like
Some of it. I think like
that's
originally I
terrible.
had ranked it a little bit lower because I was like, well, yes, there were 3 deaths technically. I mean, not technically. There were 3. The 2
Yeah.
kids were the one that like the mom left him outside, and Samuel, and then Solange died. So I was like, okay, so technically he was only convicted of 1 murder. So on paper, I was like, well, only 1 murder. Could it really be that high of a ranking of how fucked this is? But yeah, yeah,
No, like and that's that. Here's my thing. Name me someone worse because I
yeah.
can't think of any.
I
Like, I
know.
can think of people who murdered more people, and like I guess that's very debatable, like which is
But
worse. But
I
like,
feel like they didn't. I mean, they took their. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like they took their life. So that's probably in a way, obviously, worse than like torturing them. But I kind of feel like it is almost worse in a way to like. I mean, 11 years of torture in this cult. Like you're. I hope that they could recover from it. You know what I mean? So, like, yeah, I don't know. It's bad. It's really fucking bad.
yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah,
that is that. Yeah.
yeah. That's some fucked up shit, Hannah.
I
It's just,
know.
I first of all, I feel so bad. So for context for everyone else, my brother is the producer of this podcast, and he is going to have to listen to this and edit it. I feel so bad for him.
Sorry, Aidan.
Aiden. I don't know
Well, there's
what
goodness.
your Aiden, I don't know what your like threshold is for like just fucked up stuff, but
So this is that bad. This is bad, right?
yes, this is
Yeah, bad.
horrible.
It's like the details, I feel like.
It's the nitty-gritty details
Yeah,
on a very individual level. Like
yeah,
he was cutting off her arm, couldn't finish it, brought someone else in to do it, and then she goes somewhere else and then comes back and it's infected, and then he cuts off her boob and does something to her head, and then she's
yeah,
got maggots or bugs in it. Like,
yeah.
oh, blah,
I know.
blah, blah, blah. Like,
And,
fuck.
and the thing, like I respect her so much because she's the one. She's
Who
really the
started
one that,
everything.
yeah, she
Like
really,
the ending.
yeah, like she really saved everyone else by herself escaping. Like she didn't just save herself, because at that point, like that's when he knew. Okay, I mean, I'm fucked if this girl goes to the police, and obviously somebody's gonna question her. She's missing a fucking arm, so she's
Yeah.
gonna get questioned. And so at that point, like I think he basically booked it with a few of his followers and just let the rest of them go. So
Yeah.
she really liberated all of them.
And she probably like very narrowly escaped death.
Yeah, I know. She's so strong. So
Yeah. Good
I
for
have
her,
seen,
man.
I know. I have seen like I haven't looked too much into like her specifically. I was originally going to, but then I kind of decided like we'll focus on the psychopath in the telling of the story just cuz like there's so much already, you know? But I have seen some photos of her like at an older age, just like like face pictures on Google Images that were like her talking about it. So I honestly do want to look a little bit more into it, like maybe interviews with her or something. So we definitely could do a follow up if people want, or maybe we could just move on and never think about this again. I don't know.
It's hard to say which I want, but I
Yeah,
like
a little bit of
personally,
both.
I am very interested in going and looking into her story and seeing
Yeah. She's
what became of
interesting,
her.
right? Like
I
she,
mean, that is one strong individual. I think
yeah,
so many people would have just laid down and die in her scenario.
yeah,
So, like, yeah, no, I think you're completely right to say like she's a hero of yours and
hmm,
like she's super strong and extremely resilient. That's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. I'm really happy that, I mean, I think he would have been in prison forever, but I'm happy like he kind of I mean, he deserved worse, to be honest. Like, he was never tortured. I'm sure he was in a lot of pain every day from his ulcer and drinking a ton of beer on top of it. Like, I'm sure he legitimately was in pain and angry and cranky and whatever, but like, dude.
Well, and it sounds like other people in prison didn't like him and probably like maybe knew what he did. And like, if people found out that he was out there murdering babies or at least like, you know, causing their deaths, like that does not do well for you in prison. So,
but he survived in prison for a while. Like, I want to say 18 years, 1993 to 2011. That seems wrong.
And I mean, obviously, too, like Canadian jails are notoriously much softer than American prisons.
Yeah, medium security. He was a medium security prisoner. No, you're not that bad. And one of the articles I read, it was saying how, like, this was an article that had been written way before. Like, I think it might have been written before he was even transferred to the New Brunswick prison. So it would have been sometime before 2000. It was saying how, like, all the guards have nothing but good things to say about him in prison and that he's very charming. Like, go fuck yourself.
Charismatic as, like,
yeah.
I'm so curious. Like, I would just love to be a fly on the wall seeing him, like, just manipulate all these people. Cause, like, what specifically are you doing? What are you saying specifically?
Yeah, that's so charming. I think he probably just had, like, a really, like, I think he could probably turn on a really positive vibe. Like, that's essentially what being charismatic is, I feel like, is, like, influencing people with energy and, like, making them feel, like, better because you're there, I guess.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. But yeah, this guy's bad. Okay, here's someone worse. Hitler. Hitler's worse.
Hitler, yeah, I'd say Hitler was worse. I would definitely agree that Hitler was worse.
But he's also somebody who's said to be, like, really charismatic. So that's what made me remember it. And, like, I think in a way it can go a really long way. Like, it can, because if you have, like, that thirst for power and then that, like, skill with other humans, it's like,
and then do it on a large scale, and like that's what happens when you get a Hitler.
Yeah. So there you go. There's someone that's worse. But if you guys think of someone else, you can tell us. We'll definitely have, like, at least one post about this on Instagram where we would love to hear your rankings. I mean,
and tell us if we're like if you're like, why did you do that?
Oh, why did we do it? Yeah, I know. I'm sorry.
But we warned you at the beginning.
I don't know. You're welcome. I mean, if you wanted to be scared, if you wanted to be creeped out, like, this is definitely the episode for you.
We got you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I hope you go hug your cats and your dogs. Cuddle a baby. Go drop
man. Hold your kids tight. Oh my God.
I know. Yeah, so that's that. I think that we're probably going to be following this episode off with something significantly lighter, although still aggressively dark.
Yeah, just like a little light murder, whatever.
I mean, yeah, compared to this, there isn't much worse. But okay, because when I was researching it, Madison, I was like, is she gonna think I'm so soft? I wasn't sure. Like, it's hard to judge.
It's a 10. You chopped off her arm, and like it didn't end there.
I know.
It's a 10.
The dead body stuff, like, oh, I know. Yeah, I think like everything can, like, you can, at a certain point, it's like it's reached the top level of how bad it can be, and I would say this is that.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, I think I was underrating it before because like I said, I was like, well, only, not as many people died, which obviously any death is extremely tragic, but obviously compared to some other cases, like.
Yeah, and I think that's the interesting thing about this rating system is, like, it lends itself to debate because it's like, what are we rating? Are we rating, like, how it made us feel? Are we rating the amount of people who died? Are we rating how sadistic the person was? And that's kind of the point of it, to be a little bit vague, but to, like, let us talk about it.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm just gonna go out on a limb and, like, that's just how I feel. That's a fucking 10.
Yeah. So there you go. Hope you guys, I don't know if enjoyed is the right word for this, I guess. Well, maybe.
Hope you learned something.
Yeah, learned something. I think, like, the best way to put it is this is an exploration into, like, the darkest corners of the human psyche and what people are capable of. Yeah. I mean, yeah, like, I've read a lot of stuff about, like, prison torture. Like, it kind of reminds me of that, but this is, like, it's not prisoners that they're torturing. It's, like, their fucking family, allegedly. So Yeah, I think it's very interesting. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's just
It's
some knowledge
fascinating.
that,
It's fascinating that a
yeah.
person could do that. That's what I always go back to. It's absolutely fascinating because I could not fathom that. Could
To
not in
us
a
it is.
million years.
Yeah. Maybe if you're listening, it is to you too. So
You made
thank
it
you.
this far, it must
Yeah,
be.
definitely thank you for listening to this. I feel like um, you're a champ if you made it this far. You're tough,
Tough as nails.
strong. Follow us on Instagram at Who's Knocking Podcast, Twitter, Who's Knocking Podcast. If you want to send us an email of any kind, giving us feedback, episode suggestions, what have you, send us an email to hello@whosknockingpodcast.com. And we will be back next time for some more murdery shit.
Oof. Hell yeah.
Bye.
Good night. This podcast is produced in collaboration with Lost Line Media. Artwork by August Digital. Music by Matthew Cook.